want to bring in Kevin Morrison, who is an energy analyst with the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. Kevin, good morning to you. First of all, I want to talk about how important this particular refinery is in Australia.
Yeah, well, it's the bigger of the two refineries we have left in Australia, and also with just your reports there saying that the fire is at the petrol component of the refinery. That is probably the largest part of the refinery, because between the two refineries, they both produce more petrol than they do of diesel or jet fuel. So the fact that the fire has occurred at its largest producing unit will have quite an impact definitely on petrol supplies.
OK, what might that impact be? I'm sure you've calculated the number, the amount coming out and the amount that won't come out in terms of where we will feel it.
Yeah, well, roughly between the two refineries, they produce about 100,000 barrels of petrol each day. So that's around 10% of our total requirements, but it's about a third of all our petrol requirements that are what we use every day. And so therefore, if it's for the Geelong alone, that's roughly around a sixth of all the petrol that's produced that is consumed in the country.
And presumably, the longer it's not fully operating, the longer the economic problems.
Well, this is it. Yeah, we really at this stage we don't know how long it's out for. But that petrol will have to be replaced. So as the CEO of Viva just indicated earlier, that they would have to replace that with imports. Now, this really couldn't come at a worse time because everybody's short of both oil and product. So Viva are going to be out there trying to secure more petrol supplies when the international market, it couldn't be any tighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Prime Minister is in Malaysia at the moment trying to secure more. We know that the impacts here in terms of supply, Chris Bowen tells us daily how many petrol stations are out of diesel or petrol, tells us how much we have in reserve. This will compound those problems, but equally that ships haven't been able to leave for 6 weeks. The ships that we've got coming at the moment were already through the Strait of Hormuz, weren't they? So I'm thinking of the longer term impacts of Bowsers running dry.
Yeah, look, yeah, as I said, I mean, and if we just sort of go back to the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, so far it's been calculated roughly about 11 million barrels a day has been impacted. Now that's really largely affecting the Asia Pacific because that's where most of the oil flows, and so therefore, in turn, Australia is buying a lot of its oil products from those refineries in Asia, but they're probably producing at a lower amount because they simply don't have the crude oil from the Middle East. So this is why the markets have tightened, and if we're now sort of looking for more in a market that's got less, then yeah, we can only see sort of prices going one way in that scenario. And now that the straits seem to be almost 100% sort of closed, I mean, just depending on who you listen to, but so further out. We're going to be seeing supply disruption for some, several months yet.
And what about the financial implications, both for the consumer on the hard end of it, if you like, and as well for the government and the sector? What sort of costs are we looking at?
Well, obviously with the consumer, and this is it. I mean, we've had the government advising people to consume less, but for a lot of industry, they don't really have so many options. I mean, agriculture, for instance, we're coming into the planting season there, and the farmers use diesel, and there really is no alternative to that. So if they're not able to plant their crops, then there's going to be less grains to be harvested later in the year. That then less food supply. It just sort of compounds in so many areas. And the same for mining. Mining is a very big consumer of diesel, and if they don't have, we've already seen some mines having to sort of cut back because they haven't been able to secure the diesel requirements. So, and then if we talk about another impact on the consumer, the biggest consumer of diesel is the freight industry. So, transporting, say, your food from the farm to the supermarket shelf, that's all going to be added. So as we're going to see higher food prices, and the treasurers have already admitted that, and we've also had the IMF report out earlier this week. We're saying that Australia will be one of the most impacted from the price point of view, because we're one, we completely or almost rely on imports of our oil.
Very interesting. Energy analyst Kevin Morrison, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna.